Alrighty, welcome back, everyone. We just broke down those two big-time Big 12 matchups this upcoming weekend, and there's a ton of them across that conference that we will get to throughout the weekend. But let's get into the top 10 teams in the country. Just get an idea of where they are, how big of the matchups that they're playing are, and just what we need to see from them, both from a mentality perspective in a lot of ways, and just on the field. What do you want to see? And we'll start with the number one team in the country. The Texas Longhorns take on the biggest test they've had all year by a pretty comfortable margin, at least offensively, by a very comfortable margin. It's going to be incredible to see what this team is in the SEC. It's the measuring stick game. They want to beat Georgia. You got to beat Georgia to do it. So it's going to be incredible to watch this one. If they win, they are the team to beat in the conference, maybe even the team to beat in the country. If you lose, and you lose convincingly, although I don't necessarily see that in the cards. Let's say they lose convincingly, a lot of questions around that program going forward. So a big one in this one. The biggest thing I need to see here is I want to see pre-injury Quinn Ewers. You want to see a Quinn Ewers that is not missing guys over the middle that are open, or not overthrowing guys, not getting off his spot just a little bit too early. And frankly, I think we will. I think he'll be more than fine in this game. I think it was more a little bit of rust, a little bit getting back up to game speed in that Oklahoma game. And frankly, when you're excuse me, when you're facing a Brent Venables defense, it's going to be really hard to play your best game of football. He does such a good job disguising coverages, and it got to Quinn a couple of times in that game. We'll see if Georgia's able to do the same thing, but biggest thing, get Quinn back where you expect Quinn to be, which is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And then the other one is just keeping your composure. You have not been here. Texas has played really, really good football over the last couple of years. Georgia is coming into your place. You are the favorite in this game. You are the hunted in this game. You got to be able to handle it. It is the difference between a team that wins one title and a team that's be able to sustain it is in these big time games, you rise to that moment and you're able to handle whatever's thrown at you. You know, a lot of people are going to pick Texas in this game. A lot of people are going to give them that rat poison that they are the best team in the country. How do you handle it? Do you walk out on that field and just take over, or does the UGA's kind of championship DNA take over late in this game? Going to be a huge one, and definitely a lot that Texas needs to check off in this one to get the win. As for Oregon, they're coming off a huge win, one of the best wins in their program's history, and now they're going on the road to Purdue. Shouldn't be a problem, right? I said Saturday there. It is a Friday night game. Apologies for that. That is actually kind of a big piece of this, but the biggest thing here is you're coming off a huge win. You're coming off a very emotional win that, let's be honest, could get you to take your foot off the gas pedal just a little bit. I want to see them go flying out the gates. I would love to see that defense flying all around the field. I would love to see a couple of deep shots early on, and that's the other thing I'd love to see. Dylan Gabriel did a great job pushing the ball downfield against Ohio State. Some of that was a little bit given to him. Not necessarily saying that he didn't make great plays in that game. It's just to say Denzel Burke was playing very close to the line of scrimmage. There were not a lot of safeties over top. Purdue's probably not going to let you do that, at least as consistently. They will probably play a lot of safeties over top, make you earn it, and can he make the plays when that happens? Because that's probably the look he'll get pretty much the rest of the year. Definitely going to be a huge one, and Oregon's just got to be a little bit careful in this one. As for Georgia, on the other side of that Texas matchup, this one's huge. I don't think I need to tell anyone that. There are so many different things that Georgia has to be fixed in this game, that they have to prove that they can do in this game. And right now, there's a lot of questions and not too many answers around there. But on the offensive side of the ball, you got to get the run game going. You are not beating this Texas team if you are one-dimensional on offense, because the reality is they have a really good back end. I do think they can be attacked a little bit more aggressively than they have been in the past, especially by a player like Carson Beck, but the reality is pretty much anyone playing one-dimensional football is going to have a really tough time beating an elite team in the sport. That's the reality that Georgia's facing. So they're going to have to play really clean football. They're going to have to be able to run the ball, and then I think openings will come in that back end. No two ways about that. You can't do it if you can't run the ball. That's just the reality of the situation, and one of the reasons that Georgia's struggled a lot early on this season. And then on the other side, the back end of Georgia just has to be more disciplined. There are too many open receivers running, and frankly, you are giving it to the best quarterback that is able to hit open receivers in stride, and you're giving it to a play caller that can just give you nightmares. So they have to be better. They have to be in their hip pocket. A guy that I very much want to see for Georgia this upcoming weekend is Ellis Robinson. He's a freshman. I understand that. Big time game. At the end of the day, you don't have many other better choices. You have to be able to lean on these guys. And Ellis Robinson, the ball skills that he has, ridiculous. So maybe he makes that one play that you need. They got to find something on the back end, or Texas is really going to tear him to pieces. Then we got Miami, and this is an interesting game because the line is not quite what I expected it to be. There's an undefeated team playing really good football, a Heisman candidate, and they're favored by 4 against a Louisville team that has played very inconsistent, very weird football all over the place. So what is this game going to be about? I think for more than anything for Miami, the biggest thing that I want to see is just don't let this team get a lead. It's too easy for a lot of these teams to get leads. Explosive plays have been a big problem, and that's exactly what Louisville likes to do. So you're going to have to be very careful in this game, and there's a world where you get down 21-0 and you just don't have the firepower to come back in this one because the Louisville defense, although not great, is a little bit better than the ones that you faced in the past. And then the other part you want to see, and frankly, it probably would negate the early part of this, no turnovers from Cam Ward. If you can get no turnovers from Cam Ward, you have to feel great about where he's going. If he turns over the ball a couple of times again, you might just have to live with that going forward and just have to win games in spite of those mistakes. But moving on to Alabama, this is a very, very interesting game, and one of those where Alabama's got plenty of things to figure out, and this game is not going to be where they figure out all of them. But the reality is, a lot of stuff has happened. You lose to Vandy, you play a close one against South Carolina at home. A lot of the fan base is questioning a ton of things. You win this one, all of that washes away. You are at a clean slate. You are able to move forward. You are definitely a contender in the CFP and the SEC, so no doubt in my mind, the biggest thing for Alabama in this game, play really competent on the back end. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't, and frankly, if Nico's going to miss the balls that he's been missing, it doesn't need to be perfect by any means. What it does need to be is a whole lot better. There are way too many guys running wide open. Mazeo Bennett on that touchdown for South Carolina was as open as I've ever seen someone. It is absolutely ridiculous that they are losing so many guys in coverage, and while Tennessee hasn't necessarily been able to hit those deep shots, you give him 5-10 yards of separation, he's going to be able to hit them. I can promise you that. And then the other thing for me is play complementary football. It feels like all year for Alabama, it's been the offense is absolutely going crazy, but the defense isn't playing all that well. Or the defense is going absolutely crazy, or the offense isn't playing all that well. And the only real time I saw complementary football was the first little bit of that Georgia game. You got to get back to that. You got to be able to play at least a little bit cleaner. You got to get this defense a little bit of time to rest because they've been on the field just way too often this year. So a lot of things that need to happen in this game for Alabama. But at the end of the day, just those execution things on the back end and playing just a little bit more complementary football probably gives you a win here. Then we got LSU, a very interesting game going on the road to Arkansas. I gave my pick here. I do think LSU ekes out a win, but the reality is you're facing a very tough Arkansas team, and no doubt about it, the biggest thing that I need to see is just another good defensive performance. You know, last week I was really astounded with what they were able to do. There were holes, no two ways about that, but the pass rush got home a ton. Weeks was all over the place. They played really, really solid football for the first time on the defensive side of the ball then a calendar year, probably, if I'm being totally honest. So they got a lot of things to figure out, but this is a game where Arkansas can cause some problems for you. But if you can put together another good defensive performance, you now have the confidence that not only you can win a couple of games down the stretch, get to the CFP, but who says you can't get to the SEC title with a defense that's playing a little bit better and an offense that is as explosive as anyone in the country? And then the other thing I need to see is the run game. You just have to get that going more often. Caden Durham has to get going. Maybe Josh Williams in there as well. But the reality is you don't get this run game going against a team like A&M, Alabama, it could be a long day for you. And then we got Iowa State, a top 10 team. I absolutely love to see the Cyclones all the way up here. But Iowa State returns home after a big win over West Virginia, and they're returning home to one of the more disappointing teams in the Big 12 thus far this year. So a lot of things for UCF to figure out. But on the other side, for me, I would love to see a really prolific game offensively. I would love to see, pushing the ball downfield a little bit more often. Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel both topping, 75 yards receiving and having a couple of touchdowns, playing incredible football on the outside and just kind of showing that next gear. I think Iowa State still has a little bit of a gear to hit offensively, and this would probably be the game to do it. And then on the other side, you have Ja'Cory Brown starting for UCF. He came in and started that Cincinnati game. It's a very young player. Make him guess a ton of times. Get after him very, very quickly, and frankly, if you do that, this is going to be a blowout win for Iowa State. And then finally, Clemson, a top 10 team, finally a very, very good team that's just kind of handling business. they have another game that they should be able to handle business in against Virginia at home here. And the biggest thing for me here is spread the ball around. You've done a great job of this over the last couple of weeks. So whether it's Burningstool, whether it's Williams, Wesco, TJ Moore, all of those guys on the outside, find a way to facilitate the ball to as many of them as possible, get as many reps as possible, because down the road of the season, you're going to have to play Miami. You're going to have to play possibly Georgia or possibly Texas or whoever else. You're going to have to play a really elite team. You're going to want as many weapons as you possibly can going into that, and all the weapons feeling comfortable going into that. So spread the ball out, get K Klubnik going, get out there with a win, and continue your ride possibly to an ACC title and the CFP. So a lot of things going into this week for the top 10 and a lot of big-time games for the top 10 teams. But let's take our final break here. And when we come back, we just got some questions for you guys. You know, one of the bigger ones that I have is this week could answer a lot of questions, or it could add more questions to our plate. And we'll break it down right after this, so stick with us.